I'm Dr. Natalie Beauchamp, and this is What the Heck, the podcast that dives into what the heck is going on in the world of health and well-being, explores how to optimize your mindset and your lifestyle, and shares practical tools so that you can achieve your fullest potential. Join me and a special guest each week as we discuss everything from biohacking to diet personalization to cutting-edge detox methods to setting and staying accountable to your goals. Ready to find out what the heck you can do to stay healthy, sharp, and at the top of your game? Let's get started. Hello everyone, this is Dr. Natalie Beauchamp and welcome to the What the Heck podcast. This week I have a guest, Dr. Lorne Brown, who I met actually when I was traveling on my book tour in Vancouver, and him and I actually had a booth right by each other, and we started chatting, and I started asking him questions about what he was doing, and I'm like, oh, we've got to get you on the podcast. So Lorne, I will let you introduce yourself because I'm sure that you can also tell us the story on how you got to become an acupuncturist, a doctor of Chinese medicine who focuses on fertility. So Lorne, welcome to the show.
Natalie, thank you. And it's funny how, again, we met and here we are doing this podcast. So I really appreciate it. You and I were both presenting, and it was good that we weren't at the exact same time so I could catch your lecture and hear all those hacks, which I love. And thanks for your book as well. I've been looking through that excellent book. So my background, I'm a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine. I'm also a CPA, so a chartered accountant. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, Psych K practitioner, certified in laser therapy. And a lot of people go, how did you get from accountant to a doctor of Chinese medicine? You know, I had a lot of health issues, and it was Chinese medicine that dramatically changed my life after I exhausted many other approaches. And one day I left the company. I was a controller and a tax guy, and I went back to school, and because I was in love with the medicine, and started my practice. It was meant to be for digestive issues and pain, but a woman came to me with infertility, and she said, I need help. I'm going to be doing an IVF. This was back in 2000. And I said, what is IVF? So I didn't even know what that was, in vitro fertilization. And she said, I'm seeing this practitioner in Houston. Her name is Randine Lewis. She has the book, The Infertility Cure. And she says, I need to be seen once or twice a week, and it's not feasible for me to fly from Vancouver to Houston. So I've come to you to follow her recommendation. So I said, so basically what you're telling me is you want me to be like a monkey, where I put the points in where Randine says and prescribe the herbs like Randine says without any responsibility for the outcome. And she goes, yeah. I said, I love that. As a health professional, who wouldn't want to learn like that? And so Randine, I became her first one-on-one student. She was my mentor. And as you know, we got results and success. Women that are going through infertility talk to each other. And by 2004, Acubalance became very focused on reproductive health. And here we are at this date in time where we are really involved in pioneering laser acupuncture, also known as low-level laser therapy, photobiomodulation for fertility. And so that's what we do here at Acubalance. We see lots of different things, but we're famously well known for treating reproductive health issues.
Cool. So that's usually people have a story that it is personal, or like you, a patient that you saw something, you saw a need and you wanted to find a solution, and you were open-minded enough to expand your horizon. So Lorne, let's kind of step back a little bit. And why do you think, because I see it in practice as well, a lot of patients are having issues conceiving, a lot of young couple. Do you have, I'm sure you do have some reasons that you think it's impacting the health of people and reproductive health that be?
That's a great question. And the real issue here is, how do we help these women have a healthy baby? And I have this equation that I call the healthy baby equation, which is healthy baby equals healthy egg plus healthy sperm plus healthy uterine environment. And when I say healthy baby, we're talking about the epigenetics. So basically the health blueprint of this future child. And whether that happens in the bedroom or in a lab, like in vitro fertilization, our goal really is healthy baby. And the analogy I like to share that really kind of resonates with the patients is this idea of comes from Chinese medicine that says, nourish the soul before you plant the seed. Nourish the soul before you plant the seed. So Natalie, you and your listeners, I'm sure you have this memory where you've had a plant that you've neglected, and rather than tossing it away, you were able to bring back its vigor and it gives off fruits and flowers because you started to water it again. You might have added some fertilizer, maybe even moved it away from the direct sunlight. So, I'm sure you and your listeners have done that. Well, you didn't do anything to the roots. We didn't give it like donor eggs, donor roots, right? What we did is we changed the environment in which this plant lives in. So this plant always had the potential to give off fruits and flowers, but because the soil was suboptimal, it wasn't reaching its peak potential. And so this idea for the women and the men that we see is often the environment in which your egg cells mature, which your sperm cells mature, are suboptimal, and therefore you're not reaching your peak fertility potential. And getting to that peak fertility potential at the time of conception is key because we want that healthy baby. Some of the things that can throw off this soil, this environment. So, if for a plant, if there's weeds and there's contaminants in the soil, there's rocks. So think of that as chemicals and toxins. Those are endocrine disruptors. We want to remove that. So using gentle detoxification or supporting liver and detoxification. If you're not getting water to the plant, so often that's the main thing that we see with our plants, right? We forget to water it and it dehydrates and doesn't look so great. And then we can give water to it. It comes back to life. Well, for us, that's like blood flow. And women, the blood flow to the reproductive system declines with age. And so when there's not blood flow to the cell, we get cell death. If you take your finger and you squeeze it really hard, it will turn purple and it'll hurt. And all I have to do is let go of that blockage and the blood will return and the pain will go away. So we need blood flow to the reproductive system. This is important because blood to the follicles that contain the eggs, more blood, more nutrients, more oxygen, more hormones, and it can carry away waste. Stress can cause hormonal imbalances. Stress can cause inflammation. Your diet can lead to inflammation. And so inflammation, there's a term called inflammaging. And this idea is that when you have inflammation or inflammaging, so systemic chronic inflammation, it leads to accelerated biological aging and degenerative diseases. And I often add premature fertility decline. So we want to be able to regulate that inflammation. So when you ask some of the causes, age is a factor. And so some people have delayed having children because of careers. Some have found love late. And we can't do anything about your birthdays, right? But one thing that we can do that affects the soil, or many things, are your diet. Diet can impact your soil. When I say soil, the environment of the cell, your emotions. So stress can do that. The chemicals that you have in your environment can affect that. So there's many things that people can do to optimize this soil. So we get blood flow, we bring down the inflammation, we balance the hormone. Diet's key, stress reduction, exercise, sleep. If you have nutritional deficiencies in your soil, then that's the fertilizer. So taking vitamins and supplements. Just a few, I know you love the self-hacks. I'll throw a few in here as we chat.
Yeah.
For the nutrients, people often say, so what should I be taking for fertility? Because there are a lot of vitamins out there on the internet. I'll share what we kind of give as standard, and then we modify or adjust based on your individual needs. But in general, coenzyme Q10 we give to our patients that are struggling with infertility and miscarriages, an omega-3, so essential fatty acid. We give a prenatal vitamin. They go on as well. I like magnesium. So many people are deficient in magnesium. So magnesium, I like the form magnesium bisglycinate because it won't upset the digestion. Mm-hmm. N-acetylcysteine is not a common one, popular one. It's a precursor to glutathione, an amazing antioxidant. In the West, physicians will know this. They use it for Tylenol poisoning. But NAC has been used in research for polycystic ovarian syndrome and in IVF settings. I like it because it regulates inflammation. It supports the liver function.
Yeah.
And remember, inflammation leads to so many chronic diseases, cancers, diabetes, obesity. That's that accelerated biological aging. So NAC can work on so many conditions to help create health by bringing down that inflammation. So I like N-acetylcysteine and vitamin D3. That's another really important one.
Well, God knows,
Basic ones.
We're often deficient being in Canada, and I mean, you're in the West Coast, you get a little bit more sun than I do, but still it's fairly low. I'm listening to you talking, and it's funny how, well, I do have a whole chapter on inflammation in my book, but it's funny how we're all singing the same song, that it is for fertility, it is for dementia and Alzheimer. It's mostly now all about inflammation of whichever organ that we're talking about. So our lifestyle are so important, and we are so bombarded by toxins that I myself talk about, or give the analogy of a bucket, that we all have a bucket, and depending on how we grew up in our lifestyle and so forth, our buckets may be a little bit more full. Therefore, when you're exposed to a little bit more, or the same thing as your spouse or your neighbor or your coworker, your bucket overflows and theirs doesn't. So it's this accumulation, and I think it's actually uncanny, the correlation of what you're saying to actually what is in the book and how it applies to all of that. And also, every guest, or almost every guest I've had on the show, we've all gone back to talking about the basic and the sleep and the stress and so forth. And, we talk about hacks, and there are some fancy stuff that you can do, but at the end of the day, the most important things are still the basic stuff, right? The sleep, the stress reduction, the dehydration, and so forth. So I think this is a good reminder for everyone to make sure that we have our basics, right?
The basics are key. Less than 1% of your health issues are genetic. It's all epigenetic, meaning what you're doing in your life, what you're thinking, eating, your habits. And so Chinese medicine actually says diet and lifestyle is an intervention. If the diet and lifestyle doesn't work, then try our acupuncture and herbal medicine. But in today's modern times, we're like, let me try your acupuncture and herbs. And if that doesn't work, then I'll change my diet and lifestyle. I share with patients when they come in, look, we do the laser therapy. People travel across the globe to come to our clinic to work with us on this. They come for the fertility acupuncture, and I share with them, look, if your diet isn't clean, if you're not, your thoughts, the stress in your life and your self-talk, the chemicals that you're purposefully allowing into your body, all these things, your sleep habits, your exercise, it's these habits that have led to your health issues, and it's changing these habits going to lead you back to vitality. Mm-hmm. And so it's so simple. That's why it gets dismissed, right? Because it's not fancy and expensive bells and whistles, right? But yes, I agree with you. And I think most of us in the healing profession, especially been practiced for a while. I've been in practice since 2000. It is the simple stuff that has a compounding effect that you're going to see over time that's going to make dramatic. I've had women, all I've done is change their diet, and their PMS and menstrual pain has disappeared. Why? They were so inflamed from the way they were eating. And even though they thought they're eating healthy, because they weren't eating like a processed diet, but some people have sensitivities, and some people think, oh, this food is healthy. Like, let's say gluten. A lot of people say, oh, I'm going to go off gluten. But they're eating food that's loaded with sugar. Even though it doesn't have gluten, it's loaded with sugar, and sugar can lead to inflammation, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to share on the diet side, I have 4 pillars that I like, and I'm curious if you kind of agree with this, because
I'm sure I will, but go ahead.
There's so many diets out there, and so we have a diet too on our website. And there was a Harvard nurses study where it was about 8 years. They looked at several thousand women, and they showed based on their diet whether it would increase their ovulation and fertility or not. And so we took that diet and then we modified it a bit based on the traditions of Chinese medicine. And basically, here's the tenets of what I think is good for any health. In my diet, that's called the Acubalance fertility diet, you could slap on it the anti-cancer diet, you can slap on it the weight loss diet, the good mood diet, the better skin diet. Why? Because it's an anti-inflammatory, low glycemic index diet. So basically it's as follows. Your beverages: water, herbal tea. Those are your beverages. Stay away from processed food. Stay away from refined flours. No added sugar. Eat lots of veggies, especially the green leafy vegetables. Then people say, what about meat? Go for it, right? Ideally, if you're going to have, so whether you eat meat or not, those are what's key, right? That part. If all the diets have this in common: water and herbal tea, no added sugar, no refined flour, no processed food, and lots of veggies. That's why they all work, because they all have that in common. Then some say meat, some say no meat, some say carbs, some say no carbs. If you have that other stuff, then I believe you're going to be fine. And I see that in clinical practice.
No, you're totally right. Now, I know that, I'm a big fan of Dr. Bruce Lipton's work and Dr. Joe Dispenza about epigenetic, and you're right. It says anywhere from 1% to 5% is genetic, and the rest is lifestyle. I even read not too long ago how us changing the way we live is affecting our genes and the expression of our genes. And now we're already starting to see that from generation to generation. So I'm sure you can speak to that a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, because of our time, I'll talk just about your stress and your thoughts. So when you're under stress and you have these negative thoughts, you're engaging your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight, and your energy is being mobilized to survive. And that means that energy is being made to fight or flight. It's not available for healing and repair, or in this case, reproduction. So if you're able to elicit the relaxation response several times a day, so the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest, this frees up the energy for repairs and healing and reproduction. So much of our subconscious mind, our limiting beliefs, when we go into that, because we go into autopilot all the time, but we have a lot of programs that don't serve us as adults. We have this nagging voice. Often it's not even our voice. It could be a parent or a sibling or an authority that's in our head. And we're more the same than we're different. I see the women and the men I work with when we, it comes down, and James Hollis, a psychiatrist, talks about it comes down to like being an overwhelm or abandonment. But people have a fear of lack. There's not enough, not good enough, separation, I won't be liked. I mean, this is when you really get down into that aspect of it. But in general, people are just stressing all the time, and myself included. I have to work really hard at remaining of keeping that balance and optimism. And I practice a lot of meditation and breath techniques and everything I can do to constantly elicit the relaxation response. A great example is if your hands and feet are always cold, that could be a sign of poor circulation, but it's kind of you're in that sympathetic mode a lot, that fight or flight. Why? Because the blood is diverted from your extremities, also from your digestion and your reproductive system, because those aren't our priority when you need to survive. It's going to your heart and your lungs and your large muscles so you can fight or flight, right? So I often teach a breathing exercise that engages the parasympathetic nervous system. And over 21 to 30 days, the women notice their hands and feet warm up, right? They don't notice it the first time because it's a compounding effect. So when you talk about the Joe Dispenza, I love his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Bruce Lipton, I've attended their conferences. I've done a couple of Joe Dispenza's advanced workshops. I love their work, and I'm a trained clinical hypnotherapist. So in my practice, I always like to bring in the physical medicine of herbs and diet and acupuncture, energetic medicine, photons, because laser is energy, it's light, it's photons. And then I love working with the mind, because when people have this shift and then they can engage this relaxation response several times a day, their immune system goes up, their sleep gets better, they find relief in aches and pains. Why? Somebody could say, come on, how come? Well, chronic stress leads to inflammation. Mm-hmm. And inflammation leads to accelerated biological aging and degenerative diseases. And I say premature fertility decline. And people know inflammation with pain, right? So yes, if you can work on the mind aspect, you can influence what turns on and off your genes, and you can definitely improve your what trajectory you are on for vitality versus disease.
the expression of our genes, right? I know that first time I heard Dr. Lipton say, we've been thinking that the brain of the cell was the nucleus, and now we know that it's the membrane, and that's why the power of thoughts and our senses and everything is so powerful. Now let's backtrack a little bit, because you talked about laser, and you and I had that brief discussion when we were together in Vancouver. So you're really excited about what you're seeing in your practice with the integration of laser. So tell us more about that, because it does sound really exciting.
And I apologize if I geek out, because whenever I talk about it, my team always says, you really geek out on this, but I'm quite excited about it. I'm passionate about it. I've really done a deep dive. I'll share with you that when I talk about the lasers, photobiomodulation is the scientific community's term they're using. You can also look it up under low-level laser therapy, LLLT. I'm not talking about the lasers that you see in medicine where they're cutting and burning you, or using it for skin tightening and some of the cosmetic. These are low-level laser therapy. So they're non-ionizing, non-cancer causing, and they're non-heating. So they're not going to damage your tissue, just to clarify that. Many discoveries happen by accident. And so the laser for fertility actually started, as far as I'm aware, in the mid-90s from Japan. Dr. Oshiro is a medical doctor who treats a lot of pain, and he was treating a woman 55, menopausal, for back pain. And he resolved her back pain, but her menstruation returned, and she wasn't happy about it. And then he just thought it went off, whatever. A couple of months later, another woman, menopausal, back pain he was treating, and her cycle returned. So then the gynecology clinic there decided to run a small study of 74 women. And they looked for really tough cases where women who'd gone through in vitro fertilization that weren't successful. So the women, this group of 74, the average age was 39. They had about 8 years of infertility where they've gone through a series of ART, so Clomid, IVF, etc. And they gave them low-level laser therapy treatment, a minimum of 21 treatments with the laser. And the translation was called severe infertility. So again, these people were the people that normally or aren't getting pregnant. They've already tried with the best of IVF technology that was available. And 23% of them conceived, and 68% went on to have a live birth, which was quite extraordinary for that population. So then they expanded the study to 701 women. And again, they got about 22% pregnancy rate and a 50% live birth rate. So that's where it began. And then I just recently interviewed a group, Dr. Nakamura's group out of Japan as well. And they've been doing it for 10 years, collecting data in an IVF setting. And they combine acupuncture with laser. What was really interesting, and this podcast is going to be on Acubalance, or is on Acubalance's website, is our protocol is very, very similar. And we never had it met. So it's kind of neat that we have very similar approaches. They've been studying theirs, and what they're shown is that it would increase how many blastocysts, so day 5 embryos in IVF, they basically doubled how many of these women would get to blastocysts day 5. And all the women in their group had at least 3 unsuccessful IVFs, and then they went and did the laser with the acupuncture. Recently, there's been a study that just came out in 2018. It came out on mice where they used the laser, again in an IVF setting. They lasered one ovary, so they made an incision, took out the ovary, lasered it, put it back in, put the mouse through IVF, and the ovary that had the laser had an increase in embryo quality. So in our practice in Vancouver, I've been talking to manufacturers. I've traveled to Australia, the States, Canada, to shadow with practitioners. We talk on a regular basis, geek out on it. And I've been going over with my experience with fertility and laser. A lot of these people aren't fertility experts, but they're laser experts, except for that group in Japan. And we've been just modifying our protocol. And I'm really excited because we're doing it here in Vancouver. We're happy with the results we're starting to see with it. And we have 2 studies. One is in ethics at the time of this interview to do, and another one we haven't sent in for ethics. The one that we're doing is a follow-up of an observational review we did with the fertility clinic here in Vancouver. We looked at frozen embryo transfers. So these were embryos that were genetically screened, so they were chromosomally normal. So they wanted to see if what we were doing at Acubalance was helping with uterine receptivity. So they looked back over 2 years. So from January 2016 to March 2018, they looked at all the women that had a frozen embryo transfer at their clinic and compared it to the women that had the transfers that had come to Acubalance. And at Acubalance, we do the combination of acupuncture and laser. And our population had a higher pregnancy rate and a lower miscarriage rate. Then they looked at the data in more detail, and they found that the women that had 7 or more treatments leading up to the transfer day acupuncture laser treatment had the best success, because dosage matters. A lot of people, there's research out there, think it's just the transfer day, but it's really dosaging is what most of the studies, Lee Hollander Rubin, the Magarelli Crendenda study, Christine Smith out of Australia, and then what we see in our clinic, dosage matters. And this, you get this. If you teach one of your clients, you go over diet and lifestyle, and for one day they eat well and they exercise, you're not going to expect their cholesterol and their blood pressure to change. Even though we know diet and lifestyle is a great intervention for cardiovascular issues, it has a compounding effect. Acupuncture is the same thing. It's not like one treatment one day and everything's fixed. You may get those miracle cures, but it's rare, right? Those are the outliers. So there's a dosaging. The mechanism, I'm geeking out here, but I just want to share quickly the mechanism. I won't go into detail, but how come the laser is helping? One is laser can increase blood flow to the reproductive system. Acupuncture does that. Meditation does that, right? Meditation does it indirectly by reducing the stress response, so blood goes back to digestion and reproduction. Acupuncture directly can bring blood to the reproductive system, as does the laser treatment. They did thermophotography where they lasered certain anatomical features on the neck, the carotid, styloid ganglion, and they showed blood flow head to toe. So they do this for any type of disease or condition, including infertility. It regulates inflammation systemically. So this is huge, right? Because we want to regulate that inflammation. Just on an aside, I was treating a woman with rheumatoid arthritis, and she had in every joint. But with our laser systems, we don't have time in our hour to do every joint. So we just treated her knees. But as we treated her knees, her shoulder, her wrist, her knees, her toes, they all got resolved. Her pain went from a 10 out of 10 to like a 1 out of 10. She jogs now, she runs now. That's the systemic effect of laser for inflammation, right? Regulate inflammation. Mm-hmm. And then the thing that I'm most excited about is it increases the mitochondria function and therefore production of ATP. The mitochondria are the powerhouse, the battery of the cell. And so with women, especially when we get into the advanced maternal age or the egg quality issue, it's the mitochondria from the female that goes to the embryo's mitochondria. When the man and the woman and the egg and sperm meet, it's the female's mitochondria that impacts that. And for an embryo to continue to divide and then to implant requires a lot of energy. But as we age, those mitochondria wear out and become damaged, so we don't get good division or we don't have the energy to implant. Well, photobiomodulation, low-level laser therapy, has been shown to increase mitochondrial function. And so that's the part I'm most excited about is, can we help recharge these batteries on the cells? Can we help rejuvenate them? And in Japan, Nakamura's clinic feels that we're definitely doing that. He feels that we can get the light to the ovaries. I think we still need more evidence. The mechanism is there. The mechanism of regulating inflammation, improving mitochondrial function and energy production, to increase blood flow, soften scar tissues, that's there. It's just the evidence isn't robust yet. And so I'm excited for the future of what low laser therapy holds. And the more recent study showed that it actually works synergistically with nutrients. So one study was looking at CoQ10, so it synergistically better absorption, better effect. So if you're taking your B vitamins, your vitamin C, and your CoQ10, and you're also getting your laser treatment, you may get more bang for your buck on those supplements and your nutrition from your diet as well. So I'm quite excited about it. And we have some information on the Acubalance.ca website, and we'll be putting up more as we.
Well, that was my next question too, because we could talk about this for forever. So we're getting to close to the end of the podcast. So tell us about your website, and I think you mentioned that you can give us a ebook for people to download. So we'll make sure that we put that close to this podcast after it's recorded for people to access. So name of your website, and if people want to ask you questions, or, because it's a big thing when you want to have a family and start a family and you can't. This is changing people's lives, what you're doing. So, I'm sure people don't mind traveling to clinics who are showing results and are showing it with tools that are probably less invasive. And like you said, exciting where this can go.
Sure. Well, again, the approach for your listeners is healthy babies. So that, taking your book and doing all those things to get your egg and his sperm to the peak fertility potential, because that's our goal, whether it happens in the bedroom or in the lab. We're with you. We hope it happens in the bedroom for all the listeners, but some people do need help. And IVF, regardless, our goal is healthy baby, which means you need your egg at its peak fertility potential and his sperm at the time of conception, regardless where fertilization happens. Our website is Acubalance with 1 C, and it's acubalance.ca. I know a lot of people are using that name now since we started in 2000. We're in Vancouver, Canada, so it's acubalance.ca is our website. And on our website, the Acubalance fertility diet that I wrote is available for you to download. So there's recipes and lots of advice in that book. We have a blog section. We put out anywhere from 3 to 6 blogs a week on fertility and other health-related conditions and tips. So there are hundreds and hundreds of articles and blogs to be read there. And then we have pages about the laser and information we have. We're going to be calling the laser it's going to use my name, the Brown Laser Fertility Method. And the reason we're doing this is just for confusion. So I travel the world and I lecture, and a lot of people are using laser for fertility. I see on their websites, and I visit their clinics. And what I see is they're using really underpowered lasers, and the number of joules, the time that they're spending with the patient, although they may be hitting a lot of the right areas, the laser doesn't have the power or the wavelength to penetrate to do what it needs to do, but they're not spending time. So I know a lot of people, when they hear something works with the web, all of a sudden they have it on their website. So I know with what we're doing, it's taken a lot of effort, and the cost, the resources for these lasers are high. When I was interviewing the group from Japan, Nakamura's clinic, and we shared what we were doing, he told me what he was doing. And then I said, well, we do that, and plus we do this, this, and this. He goes, that sounds like a lot of work. And I said, yes, my associates are not happy with me. So that's why on our site, we'll be calling it the Brown Laser Fertility Method, because we spend a lot of time developing it, and we don't want people to be confused if somebody else is doing a different method, which may have not adequate joules or the right system to use it. But there's information on acubalance.ca on laser for therapy, and our diets there, and our blog. So I welcome people to look at that. And then your book is a wealth of information. There's so many self-hacks in there. So if you're creating health on a cellular level, then you are supporting your fertility. It's not that special. Whatever you're doing to support health on a cellular level, because your egg and your sperm are cells, then that's a way to optimize your fertility. Think of that plant, and you want to nourish the soil. You want to nourish the environment. We're assuming that your egg and his sperm have the potential to give life, but the environment in which they're in are suboptimal, so they're not reaching the peak fertility potential. So everything we share on our website, Natalie's her book, all that information is about how to optimize that soil. And when I say soil, I mean cellular environment in your body. Yeah. So thank you very much for inviting me on, and I hope this was helpful to your listeners.
Oh, I'm sure it will, because maybe it's not affecting you personally in terms of who's listening. Maybe your family is you're done building your family, but I think just the concept of the inflammation and decreasing the inflammation, not the concept of, but the reality of it, and also maybe it is someone that you love who's struggling to start a family. You want to make sure that you drive them to the Acubalance.ca website. So thank you so much, Lorne, to be on our podcast.
Thanks.
So
now, I want to say, just because you're talking about they've already had their kids, this whole system works for menopause too. It's the same thing, hormonal balance, inflammation. So if you're done having your family and you're going through the change and it's uncomfortable, this will work for helping you find balanced hormones, bring down the inflammation, increase blood flow, so you can go through that easily or more easy.
Totally. Because let's face it, the baby boomers are in great numbers and they need that information. So thank you very much. This was Dr. Natalie Beauchamp for the What the Heck podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's segment, and I will see you next week. I'm Dr. Natalie Beauchamp, and this is What the Heck, the podcast that dives into what the heck is going on in the world of health and well-being, explores how to optimize your mindset and your lifestyle, and shares practical tools so that you can achieve your fullest potential. Join me and a special guest each week as we discuss everything from biohacking to diet personalization to cutting-edge detox methods to setting and staying accountable to your goals. Ready to find out what the heck you can do to stay healthy, sharp, and at the top of your game? Let's get started. This has been a Wellness on the Go production.